Alrighty guys, so we're working on getting the accessory drive installed today. So that is kind of the goal. That's what I would like to do. I started to work on it already, and you can see by all this beautiful aluminum down there that I have this. This is just spacing out the power steering feed and return line. So that is pretty nice. Uses the factory hardware and then the supplied hardware to kind of space that thing out. But just kind of got this laid out on the floor. So this is all of the stuff that goes along with the accessory drive. I do also have the pouch for the air conditioning section, which is in addition to this. So I've just been following the instructions. I want to just go through and follow them. I'm getting old, guys. I gotta admit it. I've been using instructions more and more in my life because I'm just over that whole like stubborn, I don't want to use instructions phase and then spend an extra hour trying to figure it out. So we're going to use instructions, and I kind of want to see, just going through how clear the instructions are. And I think this whole thing is really cool. I really like this pouch idea, how everything is separated. But what I can say is what I would like to see, and my opinion is irrelevant, so take it with a grain of salt. But what I think would be really cool is if you go through the instructions, and if it's going to be all separated like this in order, to have it separated by pouch in order of the step that you're actually working on. So the first step, I took the spacer piece out of this pouch, and then the next step I'm working on is connecting these two pieces, which came out of this pouch, but it took the two bolts out of the next pouch. And then the next step on this one, I'm going to be pulling these socket head bolts out of this one. So it's not a huge deal at all. Like, this is really organized and really nice how it is. What I think would be really cool is if the instructions just went like, this pouch is one step, this pouch is the next step, this is the next one. That would be really cool. Make it even easier than it is, but this is already pretty easy. So let's get going. Alrighty, so I'm gonna use the heat method and we'll get this crank pulley on. And that's a 1/4 inch impact, guys. This is just a little guy. A little bit of heat. Sometimes probably could have used a little more heat and it would have slid all the way on, but it really don't take a whole lot. All right, guys, so next step is to basically verify the pulley alignment between the alternator and the crank pulley. So the method in the instructions is to use a straight edge here and use a caliper to verify the measurement from the straight edge surface to the first rib on the crank pulley. You can see I got about 6.64. It's in millimeters right now. And basically just eyeball it, line it up on the first rib. So you're going flat edge on the straight edge to the first rib here, and then flat edge on the straight edge to the first rib on the alternator pulley. And you're measuring both because there is actually a little bit of a gap here in between because the flange on the front isn't as thick. So this is all done. I'm going to go through it and tighten down the rest of these bolts. I have to take the alternator back off before I can tighten down the third bolt, but I have two of them hand tight, so I'm going to pull the alternator back off. I'll tighten those other down, tighten the other one down, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I'm going to get the water pump back on, then we're going to do the support bracket from here to the water pump thermostat housing. Let's get this water pump on. So this is going to use the LSA water pump. Very narrow, it has the water neck on the driver's side. Most of the other LS style water pumps have the water neck on the passenger side. So it's a little bit different, unique to this setup, and I'll show you as we go through it why it has to be this way. bracket is going to come from the bottom side of the alternator here to this top bracket. So we're going to have a spacer. It's going to be a spacer here, and then a little arm that's going to come up. That'll be like a little tensioning arm for this alternator. So we'll get going on that. So we're going to take this upper thermostat housing bolt off, and it comes with a replacement longer bolt. So this is an M6x1 thread, 1 millimeter thread. We're going to put this thing in. So it replaces the thermostat housing bolt. You also have a spacer that's going to go in between this arm and the alternator. And then this is going to thread right in. So that should get the positioning right. Well, the alternator should be in the right spot. Held in. Everything is good. All right, next step is to put this pulley on. So pulley comes with a spacer, goes on the back side, and then you have a washer, and this bolt, put a little Loctite on. It also, this whole kit comes with a, I don't think I said that before, it comes with a little tube of Loctite for everything. So that's pretty cool. It comes with the Loctite, and then this is supposed to be tightened to 35 foot-pounds. And we're just gonna wing it. Next, we're gonna take this bracket right here, and you have this flat Allen bolt on the top. Stick that little guy in there, and then we're gonna tighten this thing up, but leave it a little bit loose. Instructions say leave it a little bit loose, probably because we're gonna get everything else kind of in position, and then we'll finalize and tighten everything down. Next, you got this triangle bracket with the two other flat hex head bolts. One's going to pass all the way through into the other portion of the old tensioner bracket, and one's going to go into the bracket we just installed. So kind of get these things in there, suck them down a little bit tight, but once again, calls for leaving them loose. Leave it a little bit loose. Loosey-goosey. Alright, so this power steering pump bracket has to come off. So I'm just going to take this bracket, zip it off quick. And we're not going to reuse the same bolts. So I'll get the bolts and the bracket out that we're going to put on here, and then we'll put it on the engine. So we got the power steering pump on there now. So it basically says to leave all these bolts loose. I still have this one a little bit loose on there. This is what they call a serrated bolt. It's kind of got some ribs on the back side, so you tighten it down for the tension. So I'm just going to leave it in the loose position, and all the other ones are tightened up now. There's a big long one on the back side that has a little spacer there, so you got to run the bolt all the way through to the back side, and then it spaces it out off the head back here. So got it in the position that I wanted, tightened everything down. Now we're ready to move on. Alright, so here's one thing that I think is pretty cool about this whole setup that I didn't really know or understand until I actually just dropped my wrench and got to this part right here. When you drop your wrench, it's a little bit better. Just make sure you do that at least a couple times. But this whole supply fill tube for your power steering fluid comes out of here, and it actually, the kit requires you to trim that tube down, but it comes with an AN fitting that goes back in here. It's got an O-ring on it. The AN fitting goes on into the pump, and then it comes with this little hold down bracket. So honestly, when I first looked through the kit, I saw this thing and I'm like, well, that's pretty cool that it comes with this, but I don't it seems weird to me that it would come with this part of the kit and not the oil pan kit. Why is it in with the accessory drive stuff? Like, it's clearly the hold down for the oil pickup tube. So it's because I mean, it basically looks like the same thing, but it's not that. It's just to hold this AN fitting in here. So I get the AN fitting in there, and then it comes with the female AN to barb for the supply for the power steering reservoir. So that is really cool. I think this was unexpected for me. I wasn't thinking that this came with it. Obviously, there's some things when you look at the pictures that you notice right away and you see all the time. But this is one of those things that I wasn't expecting. So we'll get that on there, and then we'll be able to trim, modify, which I think is really cool. It kind of opens the door in my situation because I'm not planning on running this power steering reservoir right here. So essentially what the instructions would normally want you to do is keep this thing bolted in pretty much here. So this is like factory location, and you would just trim this off right here and send it right into the power steering pump. But what I want to do is put a turbo right here somehow. So this kind of opens the door a little bit for me to put like a 90 fitting or something else on here and get the power steering fluid from somewhere else. I don't know where yet, but we're gonna do that. Okay, so next step was the tensioners. So you got the tensioner bracket, the LOJ logo in it. So you have one roller that goes on this side, and this is exactly how it's laid out in the instructions in the picture. So you have this pulley goes on this way, then you have the ribbed pulley goes on here. Torque these down. And then you have to put the, it says you have to put the pulley on, or the tensioner on with the belt at the same time. So the instructions say to put a bolt in the top and then use a pry bar to push it over, but I think, and I did test this already, and hopefully I can do it on the camera. So what I want to do is get this thing all set up, and I don't want to use a pry bar, so that's my goal here. So I can put it on the bottom first, wrap it around the idler on the back side. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky with how the design is, that you have to kind of put the bracket on at the same time. So we'll do this. Get the belt around the tensioner. And make sure everything's lined up. Everything's in the ribs. And then I have the short bolt threaded already. And then what I'm going to do is just pull over on the top one. And I have room to get the top one threaded. Or at least I think I do. There we go. I was able to just pull it over by hand and get it in there. I just didn't like the idea of prying it over with a pry bar on the pulley, using the pulley to push it over in case you were to dent the pulley or bend it or something. So just wanted to do it that way. Now I'm going to tighten these up. And guys, we're pretty much done with this already. Just got to do the accessory drive side, which is probably a little bit silly of me to do this first because I'll have to pull it back off to put the AC belt on. But I'll get all the brackets and everything hooked up. This will be beautiful. And then this is pretty much done. So this didn't take that long. It's probably about an hour and a half maybe to get everything totally done. And that's including, you know, filming, setting up the camera, deciding what I'm gonna do, talking about it, deleting half the footage because the kids are being loud, re-recording everything, reassembling, taking it all back apart. Hashtag dad mode, just reality. So this is what we got here. And this is one option of the kit, of the accessory drive. So this is basically the full LOJ accessory drive. Here you have the factory alternator, Nissan alternator. You have the factory Nissan power steering pump, LSA water pump, Corvette balancer. Everything else comes with it. You have a lot of clearance. Awesome setup. I think this is great. This awesome setup with the AN. That's really cool. So then you have your factory power steering line. It just hooks basically right into the top, right here, just like this. Boom, you're done. And that's about it, guys. So that's about it for this one today. So got the whole accessory drive on, and I started to do some test fitting with the turbos, or a turbo single one Uno, and putting it in here where I was originally planning. And with the power steering pump and the power steering line, there is really not a whole lot of room. There's going to be a lot more room over here. The air conditioning is really what's going to have to go down here. But then you have the AC line that comes down like this and hooks into the air conditioning compressor. So you do have a line there, so not a whole lot of room. It's not going to be friendly with exhaust. So kind of debating what I want to do now. The idea originally was twin turbos up front. I still have the option of some considerations I have are cutting this whole front section out to mount the turbos somewhere in here, so that section is gone, or down in the bumper somewhere we're mounting them lower. So options that are not completely off the table are doing one larger single in this section or doing rear mounts. So I've been kind of going back and forth in my head. This is all going to be based on you know, real estate, of course. So the issue that I saw with mounting the turbo up here in a couple different positions, I can get it to fit really nicely back here, but I basically don't have any room for a downpipe then. So the more forward I bring it, it runs into the radiator. So I was considering, you know, big single, maybe something like this over here, or again, rear mounts. Rear mounts is not off the table. Like, nothing is off the table here. It's just going to be go with the flow however we decide we want to do it. So rear mount might even be a cool idea because I already have the exhaust manifolds made for this that hook up into the factory exhaust. So it would just be a matter of bolting all that stuff back in. I'd have to modify it because I moved everything back, but cutting the muffler off, mounting the turbos, I really didn't want to do like scavenge pump and all that crap just to get the oil back. But like I said, nothing's off the table. Honestly, I'm not even, like, just doing a heads cam setup is not even off the table. So there's some pretty high horsepower, nice heads cam setups. I would like to do turbo, but that would probably be like last resort. So yeah, just kind of brainstorming. We're going to do what we can. I'm going to try to get creative. And this thing is pretty nice. It's all installed. It might be kind of sneaky to do like a rear mount setup, almost look factory, but then my concern is the scavenge pumps and having to run a cold side all the way up to the front. So don't really want to do any of that stuff, but let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think? Leave it in the comments. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for a rear mount, so I don't know. It wasn't my first pick, but we may go that way. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.